Now, why isn't this? Hey, everybody. I got to unmute you. So give me a second because this is my new thing. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Let's see here. Oh, I hear somebody.
Okay. Okay, let's.
Okay, I hear you, Laura.
Yeah, I know. I'm here, but I'm like trying to figure out why.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure you heard me.
Yeah, I'm
like,
here though. I am here. I'm getting
Can
there.
they hear me? Well, that's exciting. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there. Hanging there.
That's the best you can do, right?
Pretty much. At this point, you're right.
That's all you can do.
That's it.
Plug this in, and I got, and I think. Maria, can you hear us? Is your microphone on?
Okay. All right. I'm going to tap back out for just a second.
Yeah, to see if you can get it going. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hey, there you are. You just got to unmute your microphone. This stuff is fun, right? This technology stuff. You having any fun yet? Oh, Maria, can you hear me?
You now.
Okay, I can hear you now. Yay, hi. We're just waiting for one more person to jump back on. And Kelsey's going to be late, so we have another couple more people.
Oh, sounds good, girlfriend. Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. It'll be fun, right?
Yes. How was Florida?
Oh my gosh. It was good. That was a lot of work. You know, like, can you hear me okay? Is my microphone okay? I just want to make sure. It's like it's no different than if Jeremiah and Michaela came to stay at my house and I happen to have a pool and live by the beach. So, you know, there's a lot of logistics involved in getting everybody interested in dinner at the same time and all that stuff. But other than that, like, we had a great time. The house was in a great location. We were about 500 feet from the beach.
Nice.
And we had a little small pool, but it was like 10 by 10, and Bo loved it because he could touch the bottom and pretty much all of it. And there was a bar next door. So like if Jeremiah and Michaela really wanted to go sit and drink somewhere, they had that right there. So
Nice.
I felt like it was just the whole setup was great. The drive down was a little and the drive back was great because we left at like 9 o'clock at night and
Mhm.
both slept almost the whole time. So that was kind of nice. It was really
I'm so
nice.
glad to see those pictures.
Yeah, I built a huge sandcastle with Bo, and I recorded us making it so I can use some of that later for him, like as a memory. And we went to this pirate thing on a ship, and they took us to see dolphins. And I forgot I suck at this technology thing, and I didn't hit record when
Oh,
the dolphins came by. So I got to see it, but Bo was busy like playing pirate with this whole setup. So it was crazy. But there's Lori. She was trying to connect again to see if her camera would come on. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But
All
let's
right,
see.
yeah, so for some reason, this thing won't connect me to my or whatever, but you can still hear me, so I'm good.
I
All
can
right, we'll
hear
have to
you
figure it out some
fine. That's totally fine. So welcome. And I recorded this so you guys will have it later if you ever want to listen to it again. I emailed the workbooks. I just want to make sure everybody got them.
yes, thank you so
You're
much.
you're welcome. This, if you had a chance to print it, you can write on it. I am a person that likes to do things twice, I guess, because I just have to put pen to paper with most things, like a calendar. I still like, I would be better off if I still had a written calendar and a digital camera or a calendar, because when I write something, I must like really connect with it. So I wanted you to have something that if you wanted to write with it, if you don't want to write on it today or whatever, you can do it another time or use paper. But the reason why
I'm the same, so thank you so much.
oh, you're welcome. Yeah, you guys feel free to jump in. It's only the three of us today because I have 6 people that signed up in addition, but they had to do the recording because they had dinner plans. But it's one of those things that it's kind of self-study too, but discussion always helps the creative flow. And share what you like here. If you don't want to share, don't share. But if you want to share more, feel free. Like, don't be shy. But the reason why I did this is both of you know me personally, and most of the folks that bought the recording know me as well. But for those of you that don't know me well, I just left my career and I shouldn't say left my career. I changed my career path a little bit and went back into the yoga space. Recently, I started teaching again. And I think that part of that is to stay grounded and centered and to give myself like a thing that connects me to something that's really important to me. Because when you're virtually working, I'm sure both of you could relate at some point, you may have done this during COVID, but like people feed my energy. And when you're in a good energy situation, like a yoga class, or, even if you meet somebody for coffee once a week, it's still an energetic exchange and it's a positive to a positive, in my opinion. And that keeps me in that space and energetic and excited. Like I taught this morning and it just really geared me up to be here tonight. I was like, God, I wish we were doing this at 10 in the morning. But the thing is, like, whatever your little special thing is, if you don't have that, sometimes it's hard to connect to yourself. And in my previous position as a manager, you number one have no time, and you have to be, super HR person and not share personal stories or get too deep with people, because it's exchange for money and time. It's not an exchange of energy to energy most of the time. There's an energetic flow in everything, and And I feel like when you take away some of that, the uniqueness of the people are not fueling their passions anymore. So I decided to take a step back from that position and reclaim the coaching and yoga business that I had before 2017. So here we are. And lots of stuff has changed, with technology and the social media things. And it's great. And it's crazy in the other way. Like there's a lot of information, but there might be too much information. And when I started this kind of thought process in November of like, what are the talents that I have and the skills that I have honed over the last 50 years of value, and how can I give that to everyone in content that they will be able to value? And in doing that, you get like talking about your, like, okay, well, what do you like? Like somebody might walk you through that. Like, well, what do you like? I really was at the point where if somebody asked me what I wanted to eat, I probably couldn't even tell you. Just put food in front of me and I'll eat it. Too busy, too burnt out, too overwhelmed maybe with everything at hand that I couldn't really think about myself anymore. And it wasn't that I was giving and thinking of others too much or more than myself, but the tasks that I was doing and the attention that I was paying was definitely on the outside. So when asked, okay, Brooke, what is it that you like? What is it that you are passionate about? What are those things that you think you'd like to package up and give to the world because they're gifts? Or get somebody to pay you for them, right? Like either one. But how can you sustain your life on that? And I feel that after you have, say, 30 years of work experience, there's a lot of value there because everybody's unique and everybody's different in the way they do things. And maybe you do things better, or even you can teach somebody, like, for example, or if I can use you as an example, you're a teacher. You might be able to show another teacher something that they're never going to teach you in college that will be a value and an anchor in their career for their whole life. And Maria, like you have a long history in sales. Like you can mention to someone like, listen, this is how I got into the gatekeeper or get past the gatekeeper. This is the skill that I honed. This is the way I did my prospecting. This is how I did cold calling. And I could take off years of people trying to observe and learn by observation, but they kind of have to reinvent the wheel for themselves every time. So these tricks of the trade, I feel like, is what's coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, in the cyber world. With the pandemic, everyone's like, well, you can work online and you can learn online. And a 4-year university is, the view of that changes a little bit in that setting. It's like, well, I guess if we don't have to actually be there, we could learn a lot. And there's a lot of information that's being put out in the world that's, I can help you be rich. I can help you be wealthy. I can help you lose weight. I can help you look good. I can help you all these things. But if I don't help anybody figure out who they are, all of the outside stuff will only pacify for so long. It will only sustain you, your interest, my interest, anyone's interest for a period of time till we've exhausted our, like, you're not going to eat a turkey sandwich with mustard every day for 80 years. Maybe you will, but like not many, So if you can't say like, I am this person, it's really hard, I feel, to make an extreme change or take on a new role or learn something new or walk into shoes that you've never tried on before. When like, I am this person and I like these things in general, and you feel really connected to that, what you're looking for is easily attractable. the path of least resistance comes in a way that I can't explain, because you know what you'd like to align to. I went to Abraham Hicks talk last Saturday, and she's a little transcendental. She talks about herself in third person and the self, and your source being your true self, meaning you are just the person living in your body, and then source is like your true self. And she talks about it like you carry a bag of marbles everywhere you go. And every room you go in, you open up the marbles and you leave them on the table, and those marbles are the energy. And everybody else's marbles are going to attract to those marbles, but not every marble will attract to every marble. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're trying to figure out, okay, if I know, okay, I want to make a change, but I don't know what that is, or I want to do something different, but I'm not 100% sure what that means. When you're a little bit disconnected from source, meaning yourself, it makes that question answer very difficult to answer. At least it does me. And when I walked out of my yoga studio and my yoga business 5 years ago, I felt like I knew who I was and what I liked and what I was attracted to and what my mission was. And I think that along the way, when you're asked to do things a certain way and for certain reasons by your employers, when you take on that role and that's all you kind of do, it can become part of yourself, but it's not really you. So it doesn't feel that right. You don't feel like you're in the right shoes. You feel like you have good shoes on, but maybe you get blisters every time you wear them. And maybe the blisters become a callus. And then the callus gets so big that the next time you get a new pair of shoes, they're not stretched out yet. And you kind of got to get a half size bigger. And those things are on top of, you. So we're going to just kind of like take out all that stuff that like has either been projected onto us or we've accepted as our role, and get down into like, what are the internal roles for us? Like, what's always true for us, no matter how many years we've lived or how many husbands we've had or how many lives we've led, like how many jobs we've had, whatever that is, that's always going to be part of you, unless you don't want it anymore. Then that's some shadow work and it's a separate thing. Like you got to get rid of it. And that's what we'll do later. But when you know those things, it's easier to make decisions for yourself and to know whether or not someone else's opinion is leading you the way, or your fear of the unknown is leading the way, or just not understanding what your core values are. Because when you get shaky on it, you are easily influenced. And with all that went on, like during the pandemic and everything that was negative and thrown in our face, and it still is, but it was so scary and so bad. It was like, oh my God, this is terrible. But now, and 3 years later, I think that we could all maybe say, wow, I was really scared about that when that happened in 2020, when the governor shut down Illinois and said, we can't go to work and we can't do this. That was really scary. But maybe today you're like, yeah, but like, we're all still fine. We're all still here. We all still ended up where we needed to end up. And I think that there's a lot of people that were super unsure, and had they been maybe more connected to their source, true self, whatever it is, or their core values, that time wouldn't have been so scary. Because it was pretty scary for me. And I just knew that whatever I had done in the past, I had always figured things out. But I couldn't keep people from getting sick. So, you don't have as much control. But that's why I felt that this was a program that I wanted to lead my business with, because I can have somebody walk in the door and say, I'll pay you $10,000 a month to revamp my business and help me with sales and restart this whole thing and I need to make money. I can do that. But telling people what to do and leading them to see what they have to offer is different. I feel like this is why I do this, because I don't want people to walk around feeling like they're not capable when they completely are. Because every one of us has that complete control and ability within us, no matter what it is, once we choose it. And if we don't choose it, our choices don't follow the path of least resistance. Our choices sometimes feel like, oh man, I got myself in a very big pickle with that. Or, wow, I wish I would have taken some time just to sit with it. And sitting with things is very difficult for a lot of people, because action and being in an action way every day is kind of the way that the world has gone. The Internet of Things didn't just change how fast we get information, it changed how fast we expect answers and how fast answers are expected of us. So I don't know, if somebody asked me tomorrow, like, hey, Brooke, I got an opportunity. Would you like to go do this? If it sounded like it was like a great idea, I'd like to hear more. 7 months ago, I'd be like, sign me up, let's do it. Having taken no time and no inventory of what my thoughts were about it. And I can do that still, because I have that little thing in my head that's always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? I can pay attention to the new shiny stuff and the great stuff, but I can take my time and say, okay, well, wait a minute. I got to check in with, the other 5 people that live within me. Because if you think about it, we all have all these different roles and personalities, right? But integrating them into, like, if somebody said to you, like, okay, my name is Brooke and I'm this, or this is about me. And when you can answer that question very fast, and I don't mean like fast story, but quickly, because you don't have to think about it, it's empowering. I actually had to do a small exercise that we're going to do at the end on a retreat once. And I was like, oh, what do you mean I can't talk about who I am and not talk about like that I'm a mom or that I'm this role? It's because those things are not what's always true. They're not only who you are. We're not every external role. So that was a long intro, but I think if you browsed through the workbook at all, I did just kind of come to a place where I just felt like nothing that I was doing felt like my choices every day. I just felt like I had to just go along and not that I didn't have a choice, but like life was happening to me. I wasn't making life happen. So when you have all that aligned in your mind and in your spirit and your body, it's like, okay, these are the things that I believe in. These are the things that I definitely don't want. And if you don't know what those things that you want are, once you identify what you don't want, it's a lot easier to say what you do. And if you had a passion or dream or anything that you just know is in you that's just kind of lost now, or it was something that you thought you wanted to do 10 years ago and now, well, I don't do that anymore. I don't love this anymore, or I don't love that career anymore. It doesn't mean that you failed at that thing. You just would like to do something different now. And that's okay. And I think that if we're in the generation of being 45 to 65, it was taught to us that in high school, you're going to pick what you want to do with your whole life right now, today, at 17. We hope you really are happy in 50 years, right? And pivoting is the way I see a change like that. It's like you change your life, your career, whatever, you pivot. It wasn't viewed as a success. And now side hustles and streams of income and all these different entrepreneurial avenues are celebrated. And it's like, everybody needs to be doing this. Don't just go to college and learn one thing. But that's not what we learned. That's not what we were taught. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Where's my guidance counselor? I need somebody to walk me through that. So if you guys want to share a reason that you're here, I would absolutely love for you to share, besides that you were invited.
Well, I think for me, I'm here because there's just been so much that's been going on, literally off and on for the past 10 years, but the last two have just been solid.
Solid shit shows?
I don't have myself.
Yeah.
I just, like you said, you get so involved with being in one or maybe two particular roles. That's all you are. And now, that role with my husband passing away, that it's gone. And it's where the hell am I? What do I do now? I will say this for me, it we knew that there were issues. We knew it was coming. We didn't know that it was gonna go the way it did, but it did. And it's okay. He's gone, and then you're dealing with those feelings of guilt, regret. I'm questioning everything right now, and it's just as the months have gone on, I've gotten better with it, but it's a feeling of being lost. It's, who the hell are you? Because it's just that's the role that you had, and it's just trying to find that has not been the easiest, because I know that I'm in a sense relieved that, and this might sound terrible, but in a sense, I'm relieved that that role is no longer there, because the stress that I was under isn't there anymore. The stress that was under isn't there anymore. And that's great. But then it's all of the haze and the fog started to lift. Then, I just kind of sat back in the house and went, okay, now what? Now what do we do? So,
thank you for sharing that, Lori. We're gonna get into the roles and who you are, but there's so many things about that role that are loving and giving and wonderful, that do have parts of you. And if you weren't those things, that role would probably have not gone the way it did. But know that, like, you get to take all of the good things out of that role. And we'll talk about that as we go into this with the workbook. You get to choose what you'd like to take with you along for other roles that you are, or just your core values. Because, like, example, being a loving wife and caregiver to your husband was in your makeup, because you are a kind, loving, and caring person. Make sense?
yes.
It's just now, what do I do with all of those parts of me and me that I'm not actively doing that thing? Is what I kind of hear. Like, it's
That's
okay.
Exactly it. Right.
And it's totally, I mean, from a personal standpoint, when someone's ill for long term and they pass away, they taught me in hospice, when I volunteered for hospice, that it is a completely natural feeling of relief.
Yes.
To see someone suffer long term is painful. And I know it comes with guilt a little bit, but as women, we like guilt. I don't know why we like it. I like it. And then I'm like,
Right.
why do I feel guilty? And that's okay. So we're going to go through some more of those pieces of that role that we get to take along. Because I may not be the best, like, I love being a mother, but like there's some parts of it that I don't really love. And it's okay, but I get to be connected to the parts that I do. Right?
Right. Right.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? I didn't want to take you out of. So if you look at the workbook, there's internal versus external roles. That's on page 7. And that's kind of where we start to dive into this. But if I were to ask most women, especially, like, so, hi, I'm Brooke. And then someone maybe asks, well, tell me more about yourself. I think the first thing that I would have said 6 months ago is I am a sales manager I'm area sales manager for DR Horton. And I manage a team of 20 people. And I have 2 kids. And that's about all I got to say because I'm busy.
Right.
Or I used to own a yoga studio, or I used to do yoga or whatever. But I don't have much more time for that, right?
Right.
And then we start talking about each other's children or each other's jobs or each other's whatever. And that's all fine and dandy in small talk and getting to know people that you don't know. But when somebody asks you to tell them more about you, they're usually genuinely interested and they like to know more than just that, right? They want to know what makes you tick. If Oprah Winfrey interviewed me tomorrow and she said, tell me more about yourself, I would say something completely different than that. I would tell her that my mission in life is to make sure that everyone on the planet knows that whatever they think that they can do, they can. And whatever they think they can't do, they can't. That's the bottom line. Physically different, physically incapable, that's a totally different thing. But like, you have that ability, and honestly, doing yoga is what really just kind of showed me that. Because I was the first class and I was a head case. I'm like, holy shit, I got to get out of here. It's 90 degrees. I'm fucking sweating. These people are like so close together and she just wants me to breathe. And I stand on one leg and I don't know where my ass is or my head is. But I'm going to do what she said and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to shut up. And I mean, shut up here. So that was eye-opening to me, and it would happen in my late 30s. I thought I was, going to have to be a head case the rest of my life, carry around a bottle of Xanax so I didn't have a panic attack in Dominic's. I mean, I know Dominic's is cold and close and I'm dating myself, but you know what I mean? Like, that there's a trigger, like, okay, I'm going to this is all I can take. And every time I went to class, all I learned was I can take so much more. I can handle so much more in my mind. I'm a weakling. It was like going to the gym for my mind. So that being said, like, in order to get to the bottom of that question, in order to answer that question differently, you kind of have to look at the outside roles. But more importantly is the inside role. Like, what have you always been? I've always been a woman. I've always wanted to be a woman. I mean, I'd like the advantage of being a man in theory, but I like being a woman. I've always been very loyal and connected to my family. Family is a internal beacon for me. What are my unique gifts? I don't know really. I mean, there's some. I think I came out talking, right? So I can talk to anybody. Whether or not they want to listen, I don't know. But just these little things. And then what did that innate thing in me give me? How did that help me in my life? Well, I was able to communicate. I was able to sell. I was able to earn a living. What are my internal emotions? Well, I can tell you one of my worst ones is my fear of being rejected is probably my biggest fear. That I could walk into a room of 20 women and want to share this gift, and they'd all be like, what the hell is this chick doing in here? That if I post on social media, people are like, why the hell does she think she should be on here talking about that? But if I feed into that, then the emotions that I'm born with, that are part of me, that I just like to emulate, love, kindness, compassion, they won't come out. So, you know those things about yourself, but we don't talk about those things about ourselves. We talk about the worst thing about ourselves when we talk to ourselves. Like, oh my God, you said that. That was so stupid. Why did you say that? I've said that to myself, I don't know, 10 times already since we started, you know? But then I say, oh, well, that I think is really genuine, or that was working out. You should recognize those things too, right? Because they're part of you. They're good things about you. We just have this really dandy way of talking to ourselves in a transactional almost way. Like, you didn't do this right, or you could have done that better, or you could have said or should have said, or whatever. I could have, should have, could have myself out of 2 divorces for sure. One of them, not so much, but definitely the other 2. So, and then what's an external role? Well, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I have a role in the community. I'm a yoga teacher now. I was a sales manager, so I'm a yoga teacher, sales manager, coach, whatever. And then what are the unique gifts that I learned? What are those things that I learned in my external roles, but I really like them now? They're really part of me. Like, I couldn't just give it up and then still be me. People learn, for example, a yoga teacher. And I hate to use myself as an example, but I don't want to call anybody out. So I'm a yoga teacher. And for about 5 years, I didn't teach any yoga at all. And no matter what I was doing or who I was talking to or who I was looking at, for about 3 out of those 5 years, I would have been analyzing what in their body was out of balance and how I could help them physically. Like, I can notice if somebody doesn't use their shoulder, a lot, or if they walk a certain way, or if they have tight hips, or if they have a tight neck, or all of those things, just by observing the way they move their body. And that's something that I don't think is a terrible thing that I learned. It became part of the way I looked at people. I could help you with yoga because I think that strongly about yoga, not only for the mind, but for the body. I had 2 women that came to class this morning that started doing yoga when they were my age, and 13 years later, 10 years later, they're still doing yoga. So they decided to learn something at 50 and they want to take it with them, right? And then what's the value of you? So all of those things, when you peel back all the stuff around it, kind of like a manicured lawn. If you clean up the fall cleanup, you get all the dead leaves and you get all the dead branches out of there, then you see all the new growth and you see the plant for what it's been. It could be a 50-year-old bush or tree or whatever. And you see the strength of it, but you have to notice all of the things that are keeping it from continuing to grow. Things can get in the way. Maybe they're too close together. Maybe you got 5 bushes, they need to be spread apart. Maybe they didn't, get trimmed at the right time of year, whatever it is. But once you get rid of all that stuff, you see all the things, the way it started is the way it is now. It's just bigger. It started this big, but now it's a big tree. It's still a tree. It just became a better tree. Otherwise, it would have gotten killed in a storm, right? That's what happens. If you don't weather those things and you lose branches and you don't repair yourself, you just got this ugly, scary looking tree. And I became a scary looking tree. I was like, I don't want to be a scary tree. I want to be the tree that's the steadfast, the tree that's you're driving by, God, that tree is so great. I remember planting that tree 40 years ago. So we're going to talk about those things. And then there was this thing that came up for me when like preparing this whole class. It's how you're perceived. And that's a whole different thing than an external role. The external lenses of which you're perceived are highly identifiable, like by the external roles you play, like because people assume things from those roles. Like, I even have assumptions about, I don't know, doctors. Oh, they're probably pretty financially sound. Why would I have that thought in my head? Only because, like, the society that we live in has told us that doctors are successful and they're, and most doctors have, I don't know, fancy car, whatever. But I don't know if that person is in a shitty marriage or hooked on drugs or anything. But my view of that person is they got their shit together because they're a doctor. Why? What? It's an assumption. So people assume and perceive us in ways that may not be in true alignment with who we really are. And we have to let them do that. But whose lens are you looking through when you're looking at yourself? Do you see yourself in the way that your parents see you or other family members? Do you only see yourself in the way a spouse or a partner or former partner spouse sees you or saw you? Do you only look at yourself the way that you think your children see you or nieces and nephews? Do you think that your personal peers, your friends, are the way that you look at yourself? I mean, if we all saw each other the way we think that like unconditional love person would see ourselves, it would be a lot different than what we do with the talk, right? But then do we see each other through other moms or wives? Or like, does that mom think I should be feeding my kids that? Like, I literally bought soda to the pool today because they had a party. I bought the mini cans. I had them from vacation, but we didn't use them, so I brought them to the pool. But I bring them, right? And this little voice in my head goes, what if their moms don't let them drink soda? Like, I let Bo have maybe one mini can of soda once a day in the summer. Otherwise, he just naturally gravitates towards water. So I didn't open my cooler up for everybody. I was just like, hey, I got these sodas. If you are okay with it, the kids can have one. Because here's what I was thinking. They're going to think I'm terrible. And I give Bo soda and Bo has ADHD and he bounces off the walls. And why would I give him more sugar? And they're probably thinking I'm a terrible mother. That literally goes through your mind when you're going to offer your friends' kids a soda. So I was looking at myself like, oh, I don't want to be perceived by these other mothers as not a good mom because I let Bo have one soda. Even now, I'm telling you, I have to tell you, I have given one soda. Like, do you care that he drinks soda? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Like, we get that deep, but we don't know that we do it until we hear ourselves. The influence, there's a lot of people that have lenses on us. And I, a long time ago, kind of became a person that just decided, like, you're either going to have to just love me or not love me. And if you love me, come along for the ride. And if you don't, I wish you nothing but love and I release you with love, right? But sometimes we get really kind of stuck in this masculine energy, like, oh, well, fuck them. I don't care what they think about me. And we do, but we don't, right? Like, I'm not going to care what they think about me to the point where I'm going to make a decision based on that. But I don't know if I've gotten my consciousness to the level where I'm going to try to take a look at myself through their eyes. And that's kind of scary. So after looking at like who are the people that are the external lenses and the opinions that we kind of make up in our head and have this dialogue with as if they really were true, they influence us, even if they're not true. And one thing I learned in being trained as a coach is the first question you should ask yourself when you have a thought is that true? And then after you say, well, I'm not sure if it's true, but I think it's true. Then you ask yourself, is it 100% true? And then you have more conversation. And then you ask yourself again, well, is that 100% true? So you can get into like some truth there and realize none of this stuff that I'm making up in my head is relevant. So that's about quieting your mind chatter. But once you know, like, I am kind of having this inner dialogue and I am kind of thinking about how I'm being perceived, what is that influence outcome? And I kind of like came up with a short list. And I mean, it's, first of all, it's very uncomfortable. And there's a fear of loss. The fear of losing is I'm losing, maybe status, maybe I'm losing respect. The influence of external lenses is more obligations sometimes. Like I should do this so that they think I'm doing the right thing and you don't even want to do it. There's some things like I want to do this so I not FOMO, I fear of missing out. Disappointing others, including perfect strangers, and other people's projected fears. If you ever listen to Steve Harvey, there's one thing that he's got on, so it goes around social media a lot. And he says, you need to get away from the people that are in your family that are still where they like, you need to get away from people in your family, friends, colleagues that have never gone anywhere else. You need to talk to the people that have gone places and seen things. And if you think about it, like for people like us that didn't grow up on the internet, who can't fantasize, we had to go look at books to daydream kind of, right? Or look at TV. What he's saying is like, the people that are around you can only talk about their own experiences. And if they've only had the same experiences as you, you can't grow. So it's okay to like move your feet and travel somewhere or whatever the case. So when you hear somebody say to Steve Harvey, you can't make money making jokes. You're never going to be rich being a comedian. If he listened to those people, he'd be with those people, right? So when you look at yourself like, oh, if I look at myself as I'm going to fail if I go do this, just like I'm looking at myself through whatever her name is, eyes, then I'm going to think that her fears are my fears and her thoughts are my thoughts. So you have to be real careful about the influence of it. In the areas specifically that people influence you subconsciously, I think number one is about money. I think that we only know what we know about money because we've seen our family members do what they've done with money. And until you're subjected to other people that might have a different idea, like maybe $5,000 debt isn't bad if you want to start a business. But if you talk to another family member, they may have been the person that's like never had a credit card bill in their life. They've never even had a credit card, maybe. And family, family. I mean, I don't know. I remember in high school or right out of high school, whoever you're dating, it's like, well, do you think you're going to marry them? Or your mom and dad would influence kind of your decision on like, I like that one or I don't like that one. So that's family and love. And maybe even having another child or not having children or having children at all. The people that are around you help you make those decisions. Your career, maybe you wanted to take a chance and somebody was like, oh my God, I know somebody did that. And no. I'm guilty of even saying those things. Spirituality. Oh, you can't go to that yoga. They're devil worshipers or something crazy, right? Like, or even being into astrology. Some people might be like, oh my gosh, that's craziness. You can't do that. So you just have to kind of like bring the external lenses into their view. And it's false beliefs. It's based on their experiences, not yours. It's based on their failures and successes, or what they've seen be successful or fail. And it's based on opinion. It's based on judgment. And sometimes it's based on fear of losing you. Because when we decide that we want to rattle the cage and shake up our lives, everyone around us is like, holy crap, what does this mean for me? Right? Like, I love my mother so very much, unconditionally. I'll do whatever that lady could possibly need for the rest of her dying day. Like every last breath, I will be there with her. But my mother has like an extreme high anxiety. Like that's just who she is as a person now. But I don't fault her for that. She's had trauma that I don't know that I could ever have survived. And yet, no matter what I do and tell her these scary things I'm going to go do, her fear comes out right away. Oh my God, Brooke, I can't even believe what are we going to do? Or, oh my God, this happened. And then I look at her or I talk to her and I say, okay, so I'm going to do this. And when I tell her that, she believes in me. And so her unfounded fears and opinions, the dynamic of our relationship allows it to not influence my decision directly, but innately because of who she raised me. So those fears are in me. I would love to pack my shit, take this house and go to a different state and live by the ocean. Honest to God. I mean, it would make me no more happier. You have no idea if I could just go and have my kid run around like it's summer 24/7. You know what I mean? Part of it is a fantasy, but the other part is very real. But I really didn't feel like I could do that until like, I don't know, the last couple of years. I still probably would not because, she's my mother. I love her. And I feel like I wouldn't leave her. But there's something to be said of like, I didn't think I should even consider it till I was almost 50 years old. And that she did nothing bad. It's just how she is, right? Just like in the 80s, it was go outside and play till the light comes on, the street light. We didn't have bad parents. We just had 80s parents. The 90s, they parented changed. In 2000s, they changed. In 2010, they really changed. And it can change so much that it's like maybe too much. I don't know. It can be opposite end of the spectrum. But really, a lot of the times that people are fearful for you, it's because they're fearful of losing you. But there's parts of you that you might not really want anymore, or things that you don't really want to do anymore. And in order to change that, parts of you change, and parts of you can be polished up and kept or gone to Goodwill, right? And that's kind of how I came up with this name of Reconnector. Like, I don't really know what all those things are of my own thought yet, like anymore, because I kind of got busy and all those calluses are on my feet and I got a half size shoe bigger now. So I think that knowing that like I needed to connect back to me in order to be able to make any decision or even like come up with a solid plan of business, it had to ring really true for me. Like, easy peasy would have been like, okay, give me a direct marketing thing. I'll sell some products. I'll sell more houses. I could sell more houses. But that really wasn't like calling me. It's not, it's not that it's not easy. It's just not me anymore. Does that make sense? So I'm going to take all the stuff that was like good and that I could even be better with or at, and bring that and pull it out so that I can pick my path. And I don't really have to do it the way that somebody else thinks I should. And neither does anybody else, really. Like, we have all these societal, like, well, you're 50, you probably should start dressing different. You might as well go get some orthotics. I don't know. Let my hair go gray and not have hair extensions and not wear my makeup. I still want to be me. I've got a friend, she's 61. And she like is trendier than 30-year-olds. Because that's what she's like. That's who she's been her whole life. She's always been the first one to, try the new curling iron or the new hairstyle or the new makeup and whatever it is. Or she's always the one telling me I need to take care of my skin. But that's no different for her. She's not going to change even when she's 80. If she's being pushed in a wheelchair, I'm telling you, she's going to have her bling and her jewelry and she's going to be living it up. That's her. She's going to be at concerts because that's her. She's going to go to museums because that's her. My mom is going no places new. She's not going to Europe. She doesn't want to do that. You know what I mean? And that's okay. She needs to do her. And I need to do me. You need to do you. So whatever the outside world and what has ever happened from day to now from your past, those are things that have shaped you. And at very least, they're going to tell you what you don't want. Every bad experience will tell you at least what you don't want. And you don't have to revisit trauma. That's for the professionals. But like, I look at when my brother died, I was not very close to him as a sister because I was 21 and he was a junior in high school. So I was at the bar every weekend with my friends and, I was not doing families. I was not living with my parents anymore. I was not there every day. And I felt really bad about that for a long time. But if you think about it, it's like, well, for that to have been any different, I would have had to predetermine the future that he was going to have an accident and that I would have wanted to spend more time with him, which is impossible. So at some point I had to release it and say, okay, who could make that opinion of you that you weren't a good sister? Because how were you supposed to know that was going to happen? And no 21-year-old is told, go spend more time with your siblings right now, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, we just don't talk that way. And that's good that we don't, because if we do, we put it on the universe, right? We don't want that back. We don't want the marbles attracting the wrong marbles, So we're going to start by like looking at the characteristics. If you don't want to use the workbook, just maybe jot down on a piece of paper and a pen to try to connect to those internal characteristics and qualities of you that have always been. It's never different. It's never been different. You don't know a different way. And it has nothing to do with any way that people see you. It's just what you know. Like, I know I've never liked whatever, mustard. We're not going to change and say, oh, we love mustard. We're going to say, this person doesn't like mustard. We're not putting mustard on the menu. So you get to put those things down, and we're going to do like a free jotting. No change, no like crossing out or erasing. We're going to do 5 minutes and we're just gonna write. 3. So don't stop. If you both like feel like you guys have enough, we'll stop. But I'm gonna even do my list again. And I've done it like 5 times. I've done this in the last month. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 minutes. I think I can't tell because I got these stupid bifocals on, but I think we got like 30 seconds, 1 more minute. You guys need more time?
No, I think I'm good.
You good? Got a good list of words there? All right. So how many
I think
words
so.
how many words do you guys have? Just curious. Don't be shy.
I think I have maybe 10.
Good. All right.
I think.
So what do you have, Maria?
Okay, so, and again, I hope I did this right because I feel like I was kind of all over the place, but
No,
I know
just
that's
words.
okay
Just
because,
words. No, it's totally
Yeah.
fine. You did it totally right. So
yeah,
whatever you
No,
did, as
so
long as you
just
wrote
kind
down
of,
all the words. Now, if you
Yeah.
use like the top piece of the paper,
okay.
we're gonna write like just write a line. Like this is what I did. I just wrote a
Mhm.
line. Okay, so now under that,
Mhm.
we're gonna write down all of the words that we can think of that you identify with in your external roles. So if you play too many roles, like your career, for example, if I say yoga teacher, or if I say mom, I'm going to take a characteristic of that role and just write down that word. Right? Does that make sense? That I identify with. Like,
Yes.
doctor might say success in my mind, but the doctor might be like, I'm not successful. It makes sense. So it doesn't have to be anything that makes sense. Like a daughter, I don't know, she can be a lot of different things. It doesn't mean that you identify with that quality in everything that you do. Make sense? So you don't have to get too deep on it, but we're going to take some time and say, okay, well, like real estate agent, one of those characteristics that I identify with is being outgoing and being helpful. Like, I think that a realtor really just kind of wants to help people and make money. And I like money. So I'm admitting to that. So that's a characteristic of like being successfully, financially successful. That's a characteristic that I identify with. But how do you say that that's like part of your personality, who you are? So I put like professional, I identify with that. I think that being professional is a good thing. That's just how I think. Other people might be like, oh, well, she's really stuffy. A 25-year-old might think completely differently, you know? So whatever resonates for you is what's here, not what you think doing it right. So we'll take a couple more minutes and then we'll do that part. Okay, so I've got like maybe the same. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, excuse me. Oh. The air quality today was like, whoo, yuckola. So do you guys have a good enough list or do you want some more time?
I'm okay.
Okay, good. All right, Maria, if you need more time, wave at me or shout on there. So part of the reason why I left 3 hours for this was like, if we did have 25 people participating, it would probably take us a lot longer to get through some of this stuff, right? But if you look at the list of the words, so the part that we just did is like connection, right? We want to connect to all of those things. We want to connect to all the good parts about ourselves. We want to connect to all the good things that we've learned and take inventory of it, so to speak. So now we're going to like claim it. Do we want it? What do we want on the list? So if you look at your list and you have that line, is there any words, are there any words rather, that are the same word? And if there are, I want you to circle them and then make another line and just print that word. So I have a common word and it's connected. And I only have one common word. Oh, no, wait. I have two. So those are my two words that are true of what has always been for me. And then characteristics and things about my roles that I've played or I play that I identify with truly and feel like that matches with those things, right? So my two words are connected and leader. I don't know if it's being the only child, but I was always in charge of shit. Just, I'll be in charge. And connected is like, I don't want to be too wiggy or anything for people, but I feel other people's energy most of the time. And when I don't, it's because I kind of checked out, disinterested. But like I've always been that way. I remember as a little child understanding like body language and voice tones and like, how you walk in a room and you're like, God, you could cut it with a knife in here. I could feel that with complete strangers. I could feel weird tensions and things like that. So that's what I use that word for, is connected. So now look at just the second list that we made, the internal list, and kind of see if there's any words on that section that are just maybe not in alignment overall. Like for me, I took the word healthy because that's a characteristic of being a yoga teacher, and I feel like that is a good attribute of being a yoga teacher. But I don't think that like being healthy is something that I wake up every morning and like think about. Like, does that make sense? It's not that I don't want to be healthy. It's just that I may not be in my core like as connected to being healthy as like what the perception is a yoga teacher is. Does that make sense? Or I have she's a talker. She's a talker. And I think that communicator was the better word. So we're gonna keep that. I'm gonna keep the talker. We don't need to go back to being in trouble at school, right? So in any case, you see where I'm going with that, right? But where I'd like you to go with is like, we're gonna remove words now. So start with the internal and cross off, maybe start with 5. If you got 10, see if you can get off 3 or take 3 off. If you have 20, like me, you can take off 5 and then read the list again, and then you're going to take off 5 more. And just for the sake of saying how unique and funny, crazy this exercise is like on my top list for what I know is always true, I have logical, loving, and faith. Logical, loving, and faith. Like logic has nothing to do with faith. They don't really work together a lot of times, right? So I feel that in my core, I'm logical and faith, and I have a lot of faith. So who's taking over, right? So after I just did a little bit more work on those 2 words now, I crossed off some more words, and the word that came true for both is optimistic or optimism. So I'm logical and I have faith in the universe and God that good things, and I know that I can use my logic to get me there. So I'm optimistic. Another good one on here for me is strong-willed. And if you take that out, because it doesn't really need to be repeated, because I already have leader. And I would say that that is true. Like, I would take leadership over the word strong-willed. But sometimes you have to be strong-willed in order to be the leader. And sometimes you have to question other people to be the leader, right? And you probably need to be logical to be the leader. So is that all making sense?
Yes.
Good. Okay. And the nice thing is we don't have to drill it down to one word because you have a name and all these words get to go under that name as an umbrella. Make sense? So that's the good thing. We're not going to drill you down to you're this because we're a lot more than just one thing. So now I'm going to throw you for a little loop. So if you have like a handful of words, 3 to 5 are probably fine. If you have 5 words, you'll have a lot to work with here. So I'm looking at my list and I've got 5 words: connected, leader, optimistic. I can't read my own writing, you guys. Connected, I already had connected. Helpful or of service. So those are my words. And on the third part of this, we're going to take that and say, what remaining words do you want more of? So do I want more of leadership? Do I want more connection? Do I want more optimism? Do I want to be of more service? And do I want to be more optimist? And what was my last word? But do I want more of that? And I would say yes to all of those things. And if you want to go back and look at the words that you crossed out, if there's anything there that you want more of, but they didn't end up on your list of 5 words, add them. Because you have a choice. Just because they didn't end up on the list doesn't mean that isn't what you want more of, especially if it's in the list that has always been. And the word connection and love and faith are on my what's always been list. So I might want to add love into my list. It's not on my final list, but love didn't make it into the roles that I play externally because my career was such a big deal of my external roles that me thinking about myself as a mom and a daughter and a friend and a mentor didn't make it on the list. I didn't even realize that was part of an external role that it's a big part of me. So I should add that back on my list. Love should be on my last list because I really resonate with that internally. So I'm writing it down because I have a choice of saying I want more of that, right? So now you have these words. And what does that mean like for you? So that's kind of hard to say, okay, so now I have these 5 words. Am I going to be asked by Oprah Winfrey tomorrow, Brooke, tell me a little bit more about yourself? And I say, I like to be connected, optimistic, and a leader, and I'm a believer and a helper, and I love people. That's not what I want to say, right? So in order to kind of articulate it, let's write a short biography about ourselves. Like, let's take these words and write like a short couple sentences about who we are. And then even further, you can take that autobiography and say, I want to write a future one. I want to take all this stuff that's really great and I want to write who I am going to become. And it doesn't mean that if you change it or add to it or deviate from it or pivot from it, that you're wrong or bad. But knowing this, the core part of that, it's like, oh, I get to take this along with me to the next thing now. Or I get to take this along with me to the boardroom, just like I do when I go see my family. I get to take, those are who I am. I'm going to stay that person now. No matter what the future person is of me, like what I decide to do and act on is a separate thing than who I am. But I don't want to lose sight of this. So I don't know how to take these words yet to put them in a sentence. So I'm going to start with one sentence at a time. If you want to take like 2 or 3 minutes for each sentence, we can. And if you're really stuck, I'm going to start with my first one. I'll help you. Connected is one of my words and leader is one of the other words. So I'll start with leader. I'll start a sentence with that one. I'm a natural leader. I'm a natural optimistic leader who really believes in being of service to people, helps me stay connected. And it just really enhances me feeling and being loved. Those are all my words, and that's who I am. And these words can be interchangeable, you know, it's not like you might resonate more right now with something that in 6 months it's still there, but it's not what you're going to say to Oprah Winfrey. But before any of these types of exercises, I would have answered Oprah Winfrey so much differently. Like, oh, I'm a sales manager for a builder, and I've got 15 neighborhoods and 20 people in my responsibility, and I've got 2 kids. They're 15 years apart, and man, is life crazy. And I hate my job, and the dating pool sucks. Honestly. But is that who I am? I don't think it is. I don't really think it is. And even though I don't have a partner right now, and nor am I actively seeking one, it doesn't mean that I don't love and want love in my life. Love doesn't have to stay with like boys. I think there's a big difference in the story there. Like, I'm a natural leader who believes in being optimistic and of service to other people to help them even believe in themselves more. helps me stay connected to myself and the love I have for others, and even to receive love sounds a lot different than, oh my God, I have all this shit, like, so the lens then that everybody sees you in completely changes based on that story. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mhm.
So how are our sentences coming? Some people hate writing. Sorry, you're probably a good writer.
Who?
You.
Me? Oh, it's interesting because I think, there's other roles that wife, mother, those weren't in my peripheral for a long time. I'm not a mom, so that's not in my peripheral. So mine's kind of simple, but as I'm looking at these lists that I just wrote out, I like it. But mine, at the end of the day, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, curious about life.
That's beautiful. And I would
Mhm.
say, Maria, that you could probably, because you are a spiritual person and you are so connected to that, I don't know, would you say that that's something that you would have said the same thing a couple of years ago?
Yes, yes, I would. I've felt this since I was a child.
And so how does that change? How does that influence the way you make your choices and decisions?
To be honest, I always ask myself, is this what God would want? And God could be an energy, could be a woman. I don't care who you pray to, but whoever your higher power is. And I have one. So
There
I
you
always
go.
I always ask, you know, does this pass the smell test?
Yes. Yes. Because it rings true for who you are.
Right.
So that's really what mind, body, spirit connection, if you want to get definition, is like your true self connecting to a higher power, whatever you call it, like you said. And it could even just be like the universe. Some people are, because we're all intricately connected. We just don't realize it until those connections start to slap you in the face.
Yep.
And the thing is, like, I'll share some personal stuff. Like, I felt really guilty after my divorce because of the things that I had done in my marriage to cause our divorce. But I think that when we examine our lives on one role, and in one role, we we tend to put importance on, or even maybe make a decision on what makes that a successful role. Does that make sense? So was
Yep.
I a good wife to Bob? All right, I'll be really personal. Um, if you look at only that one thing, in the end of our marriage, I was not. But I feel if you look at our whole marriage, for the most part, I would say yes. In fact, later in his life, before he passed away, he said, I want you to know that I'm giving you these things back, because he returned. This is very personal. I'm sorry, I don't want to cry. He returned all of the things that we had, like cards, letters, pictures, to me, and he gave them to my mom in a box because he was seeing her, and as patient, and he had seen her that day, and he followed up with an email and said, I want you to know that I did not give these things back to your mother because I want to cut you out of my life. I'm giving them to you because I'm coming to the end of mine. And I don't want my children to have to return them to you. I'd rather do that myself. And I want to tell you that looking back, these were some of the best years of my life. Now, not a lot of people can reconcile emotionally at a time that they're coming to the end of their life. Most people want to just really not look at it, right? And so we never really know most times, like, okay, well, what lens did this person see? Because my assumption was that his lens was, and his opinion and feeling and thoughts about me were going to hinge on that thing, that end of our marriage, right? And I even could think that way, even like about my dad, like, but he was the type of guy that, like, if he had something to say, he was going to say it. So I don't have any unspoken things that I feel that weren't said or done or reconciled or whatever. I know how he viewed me. I know. But if I were kinder to myself, I would have recognized that about the way Bob viewed me as well. Because if you look at it, we had 9 great years. We had one really bad one. We had some really crazy stuff that happened, but and we as humans go back to the like short-term memory. Like, I did this bad thing and he should be upset with me for the rest of his life about that. Now, I get to decide whether or not I should be upset with myself for the rest of my life. And even if I didn't hear that, I'd still need to do that for myself. Because the guilt would carry, right? It just keeps getting your way. So then when you have like these core things, how do you then say, okay, I'd like to make these changes and I want to take I want to take me along with it without giving up you. There's a trick bag in there, I'm thinking, right? There's a trick bag in there. But then I went back to the bag of marbles. And you just kind of have to always be looking at those marbles. Like, okay, so this bag of marbles, I'm bringing this to this party. But these marbles, maybe I should leave these marbles at home and bring those to the other party. Does that make sense? Then you stop bringing all your marbles to all the parties and exposing yourself to marbles that don't line up and things that don't go along with the path of least resistance. And then I got really deep on that. And I was like, well, that then, if you think about your marbles as the energy, which it is, that's the analogy, you're protecting your energy when you hold true to this statement here. And those 5 words are in there. You know what marbles to bring along and what marbles not to bring along. But you got to play with all the marbles all the time. So the lesson for me was I stopped playing with all my marbles and I started only going to the one party with the one bag of marbles. That I forgot about my mother marbles. And they could have been completely perfectly aligned. You know, like you get to bring those things out in you in ways that you don't have to be direct. Like for me, optimism is like, some people hate optimism. Like my son, Jeremiah. I love my kid, Jeremiah, man. But he challenges my optimism all the time. But he challenges it in a way that like is logical. And it's hard for me to disagree. Because I'm like, okay, he'll always he'll come to me with, oh my God, this thing happened. You know, everything is just, it feels like a big deal when he gets on the phone. You know, he's it's like, oh my God, this is not even that big of a deal. But to him it is, because he hasn't overcome an obstacle like this before. And to me, it's like this big, but to him, it's like this big. And I always, this, because it's who I am, I start to talk about the glass is half full part of the story for him, you know, to keep him positive and upbeat and not worn down and beat down. And he said to me one day, he goes, you always, always, always see or don't see my side and see everybody else's side. That's how he views that. And I was like, oh, wow, I never really thought about it like that. I'm not trying to talk you out of the fact that there's some uncomfortableness here or that there's a problem going on at all. There's a problem. But the problem is not matching with your emotional reaction. Like, let's not use all that emotional energy, isn't where I'm coming from. But he views it as I take somebody else's side. I'm not taking somebody else's side. Do I feel that the world dealt you a bad hand on that one? Hell yeah. But it's not that I'm trying to tell you that that's not true, you know? So optimism may not be the best way for me to communicate with him. And that's a practice. It's a daily practice. Like, how hard is it for me to be not who I am when I talk to somebody that I love so openly and freely? And we have this, like, you know, the family talking, because we speak differently when we're with our family than we do any, you know, somebody you're really, really close to, you're going to talk. So how do I take that out of that? It's the ongoing, okay, I have to just mindfully connect with him, or mindfully connect with my idea or whatever's going on in my head. Or even like with connecting with clients. I am not for everybody. I'm just not. If you want somebody to hold your hand and like be like, oh, you know, we should do this, this, and this. I'm going to say we should do this and this and this, but I'm going to ask you when you're going to have that done, right? Like accountability. So think of yourself as like your inner coach with this statement. Knowing that you are the whatever your statement was, it makes it easier to choose the marbles and choose the parties, and to see the negative energy as not negative to you, but just that you're not going to play with it. So here's how I can bring in the story with Jeremiah. When I speak to Jeremiah, I have to consciously tell myself that my job isn't to fix his problem. My job is maybe to listen to him. He wants to be heard. But I'm his mom, so I want to fix it. And I'm the leader innately, so I want to fix it. And I'm optimistic, and that's how I fix it. But that's not how he is. And that's all right. But once I understand how I am, then I know how to bring that, how to show up. Because I should show up differently for my friends. I should show up differently for my son. I should show up differently for both of my sons. They're two different people and two different personalities. But I didn't know how to show up anymore. I was trying to force everything to happen. Everything. Like everything. At work, at home, grocery store, Sam's Club, whatever. It was like I was going against the grain. And it was probably because I had all my marbles with me. That's a lot of shit that I don't need. And the other part is like, if I'm not knowing who I am and not knowing how to show up, I'm just showing up the same everywhere. And I think I was showing up angry, depressed, kind of like scatterbrained, and probably just not myself. And when things are going on, you don't feel like yourself anyway, because of all that's going on. So when you know you have that story or that identity, you have to kind of keep going back to that. I feel because I lost by not going back to it so many times, like in the span of 5 years, what would I felt like maybe, how different could I have felt if I did that exercise with myself all the time, checking in to my inner thing, like me? Maybe I wouldn't have felt, I probably would have felt overwhelmed and overworked and not happy and all of those things still. But I feel like I could have probably navigated my situation differently. Still would have been the situation. And I can take this statement and say, as a connected leader, and using optimism and being of service and believing in other people, I can create more love in my life, or I can create more income, or I can create more space for allowing more people into my life, or helping more people, or whatever it is that I decide I'd like to do. But I'm still doing what I like to do in the way that I like to do it. And when my dad died, I felt like I should become a nurse because I was, helping people. I quit nursing school literally twice before that. I don't know why I would ever think that. That's not who I am. I'm not a nursey person. I'm a caregiver, but I'm not a nurse. I don't like to take orders. And I don't like to be like strapped to make a decision until somebody else comes in the room, and that would be the doctor. Like nurses don't get to make choices and decisions for themselves and work. They call a doctor and say, I need an order for blah, blah, blah. And the doctor has to agree. And if they don't agree, then they don't get it. But I don't do well with that. And we all should know our limitations. And if we don't know what our gifts are and who we are and can make this statement, it's very difficult to say, I know what I don't like, and I don't like that. I've cost myself time and money, and I've cost myself emotion by not being connected to my true north, or whatever you want to call it. I've even had bad boyfriends, maybe even a bad husband. I don't know. But if you don't get in there, how do you know? So one of the really tough things was when I did resign and I hired a coach, she's like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I have no idea. All I know is this. All I know is I could teach people how to make money by selling stuff. I know I can teach yoga, and I know that most people have this ability inside of them that if cultivated, they could really change their life. Because if you don't actively decide, like somebody's not showing up at your door and taking you with them. When we're younger, I feel like you feel like that momentum because everybody's going somewhere at that time, right? And we're all kind of like going towards the same way, like all this possibility and all these years ahead of us and all these options. And as you live, you start to feel like maybe your options aren't the same, but I feel like the difference might be that there's not this big herd going the same way. So you have to find your herd and feel that energy. I've talked a lot, and I want to hear from you guys. All right, so now I took my thing and I said, now you write your short bio. So, and if you think about it, everybody's talking about this buzzword, branding yourself. Now, I think the branding part is all the fluffy stuff on the outside, the colors and the pictures and the fonts, and that's your brand, right? Like branding to me is that. But to social media and what people are saying about being a brand, and it's like, what if it's just like being true to who you are? Because like even the branding process with the woman that I hired to do my logo, she had to show me ideas for the colors and the picture, stuff and the fonts. And I had to say whether or not I liked them. She wasn't like, this is going to be your logo. This is who you are. This is who I'm going to present you as to the world as. If you don't like blue, I don't care. It's going to be blue. I have to connect to blue. I have to like it. I have to think it's me. You know how you walk in somebody's house and you're like, God, I did not expect it to be looking like this. I expected it to be like super modern or super traditional or super art deco, whatever. People's personalities come through and all that, right? So the thing is, like, would you be able to answer? Would anyone question after reading your short bio? Would anyone question that this person, this woman, knows who she is? And that's what I hope we walk away with for you today, is that you have that written down. Like, I'm this person. I don't know where I'm going with it, but I'm going somewhere. So like an intro, I put like important stuff. If you want to write it in third person, it's sometimes easier for people. I always start with important stuff like, Sally found her true calling of leadership, blah, blah, blah. And then what those qualities are, so that she can share her zest of life and support it, and has supported thousands of others to do the same. She hopes to show you that anything you put your mind to, you can achieve. Okay. And then what excites you? Helping you connect, create, and claim the life you truly desire fuels her passion of helping others. And when that doesn't ring true to you anymore, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that like you failed. It just means that it doesn't align with you anymore. And I'm a personality that is constantly like, there has to be like this turnover. It's almost like I grew that crop last year. I can't grow beans this year. We're doing all zucchinis. Or we're going to never grow corn again. I don't know how to describe it. It's like that whole thing has to just completely overhaul. And some people might be like, God, what is this woman doing? Like, she's completely nuts. And that's okay if that's what people think. At the end of the day, I'm the one that has to read that statement. I'm the one that has to tell Oprah Winfrey about who I am. So now we're going to share any surprises that you guys found. Maria, I don't know if you've got any surprises, because you came in locked and loaded knowing who you are.
Yeah, no, I don't have any surprises.
I know, that's why I wanted you to come. I was like, we got to have one person in the group. No, I'm kidding.
Well,
And then what did you learn about yourself? Like, did you learn anything?
I've learned that, by writing this out and by stating, I've knew this since I was 8 years old, and it's still who I am. I'm going with it. It's at the core who I am. And I think it
Well, it's a
serves me.
100% true.
Well,
You can
thank you.
answer and say it's 100% true.
Yeah, thank you. Again, it's my perception, but I don't know what the world perceives me as. I hope it shines through, but I don't know.
I think your actions always speak louder than words. Like as an opinion type of thing, your actions always speak louder than words, no matter what person it is. And again, we weren't here to discover what we think everyone else thinks about us. We wanted to make sure it remained true for us.
Right.
What about you, Lori? Any surprises or learning things? Any good learns?
Um, I kind of think, I'm kind of in the same boat here with everybody. But I do kind of question, and now that I'm looking at this again, and I would like, at within, maybe a day or two to kind of go back,
Okay,
because
yeah.
I'm reading this and it's like, my name is Lori. I have a deep faith in God and possess a great amount of strength and tenacity. It enhances my perception or my perceptive nature and allows me to love and accept people. So
I think
that's what I wrote. And I
can you read
think
that last
the
part again?
strength, the last
Just
part,
like the last sentence.
let's see. It kind of goes into one. So it says, okay, deep faith in God possesses a great amount of strength and tenacity, which enhances my perceptive nature and allows me to love and accept people. The perceptiveness or that of being able to perceive things, yeah, I've always been that type of person that I won't say anything, but I observe the hell out of everything. I've always been like that. And it's just, and again, and I know a lot of people will, and as we've been talking and I've been listening through this, a lot of people throughout my life have perceived that as myself being judgmental. And it's, to me, it's not being judgy at all. It's just because of me and who I am, I tend to stand back and read the room, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because I just want to see where I'm at, because I think it's my own fear or fear of rejection, maybe my lack or my own insecurities, where I just want to look around and say, okay, who am I going to be? Who am I going to better gravitate myself to? Because I don't want to sound stupid, quote unquote. I don't want to look or perceive myself to be insecure. But it was interesting because today I just had a company picnic and I walked in and there's different regions of the area with where I'm working. And I literally was the only person out of my region that was there. And it was okay. Well, now you have a choice. You can get yourself freaked out and let your anxiety eat you alive, or you can take a breath, walk around, at least exchange hellos, and then go from there. And I was able to do that, which is a big step for me because I've always been, hide in the corner somewhere and just watch and not, interact. My brother's the complete opposite. I'm the wallflower. He's Mr. Partier. That was always him. But yeah, that perceptiveness definitely rings a bell because it's just I've always been that way, and kind of like the bullshit meter. I've
I was
always
just
been
gonna
really good at
ask you a
reading
question.
bullshit.
I was gonna say, I was just gonna ask
Uh-huh.
you a question,
Uh-huh.
and maybe you were answering it. But my question
Mm-hmm.
was, do you feel that this perception has is a strength, like is helpful in your life? So it's a quality of yours, right? You view
Yes,
that as a
yes, I do believe it is a strength because it has, when I am meeting people and I am and not even necessarily that I meet people, but if I'm just in an environment where I sense something's off or not right, I just know. And when something just doesn't feel right, it just doesn't feel right. And it has helped me over the years, in get me out of situations that could have been dangerous or, not healthy or whatever the case may be. So, I feel that perceptiveness is a strength, but it is funny that a lot of other people that I've met, they well, you can be so judgmental. I'm
Well, let
thinking,
me ask, yeah, let me
no,
ask you
it's
this.
not.
Yeah.
No.
I think I picked the wrong word. So instead of saying that it's a strength, because we think it's a strength, you think it's a strength that's in your list, but like, do you think that that has been a benefit to you in every other way? Like,
Yes.
okay, so I would love for you to be able to make the statement as you own with ownership. Not my name is
Mhm.
Lori and I
Mhm.
have these qualities. It's I
Mhm.
am a perceptive, non-judgmental
Mhm. Mhm.
person. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So like
Yeah.
the statement is different than I think this, but other people might think I'm judgmental.
Mhm.
And if the more you say it as a statement, like I am this person, you may need to take the word non-judgmental out because you don't have to explain that part anymore.
Right.
And if I
Right.
can stick my 2 cents in, because I hate that word judgmental, because I've been accused of it too sometimes. And I'm not we make judgments when we put our feet on the ground. We make the judgment to get up in the morning. We make the judgment, do I want coffee or do I want orange juice? When you're in social situations, to analyze the atmosphere you're in so you know which part of you needs to show up is
Which
not
marbles to
being
use? Yeah.
There you go.
is not being
Yes.
judgmental. It's you using your power.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm. That's a good point. I like that. That's a very,
And
very good point.
yeah, and bring it and it's okay for you to not want to deal with their marbles. And
Mhm.
self-care and self-awareness and knowing the energies you like and don't like isn't, like Maria said, necessarily a judgment. It's a choice, and you are of that free will and to
Yes.
make that choice no matter what judgment people might say you're being judgmental. It is your choice to want to be around
Mhm.
somebody's energy or not be around them, and you don't really need a good reason why.
Right.
It doesn't
Exactly.
matter. It's not aligning. Path of least resistance. It's not aligning for me, and that's okay. Totally okay.
Mhm.
And I love the tenacity part because like and I would love to just hear you say I am tenaciously,
Mhm.
I'm a tenacious perceptive person, who does that, because tenacity are the things that get like, that's how change happens, and
Mhm.
and how you don't get taken down by other people's opinions.
Right. Right.
And that's not easy to do when you,
No.
especially going through, like, when you're in a situation where you have a family member that's long-term ill, in a long-term illness situation, like you've got lots of people telling you what you could or couldn't do, and then you have people's opinions that have like no room because they don't know the real situation or they're not a medical person or whatever.
Correct.
Your tenacity, that quality about you, uh, being steadfast in your and knowing what's right to do and what's of what you have prayed about, whatever, being that is an attribute that like can move mountains.
Mhm.
And when you're in situations like, I know you've worked in education, it's like working for the freaking CIA. It's the rules are so convoluted and bullshit that you don't know what's up, right? But when you know what's right and wrong and you're tenacious in that, you can stand up for what's right and wrong. And for the people that don't have a voice, to stand up for what's right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even realize you're speaking for others.
Right. And one of the other words that was on the list was advocate. I mean, I'm a very big advocate for, all of that. So it does tie in. I mean, that's definitely a person who I am, and I've always been like that. Yes. So whether it was working with kids, working with individuals with disabilities, it doesn't matter. I've always been a huge advocate for those individuals, and I will become protective, and I will stand with them. I will fight for them as much as I possibly can, as much as they'll let me, so to speak.
So that first sentence, you said, my name is Lori and I have a deep faith. Did you say I have a deep belief in God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you have a lot of deep beliefs that are very lacking at the present moment in the world. Advocacy for other people. It's not, a lot of people aren't jumping into that arena, Lori, if they're not. Because it's hard right now to be an advocate in any kind of system, Because everything has became harder and the system is taxed. And so now you're dealing with so much more. So I commend you for even jumping in that pool, but I feel like you also purpose, right? Like sometimes we're forced into a purpose because it's so much of what's going on right now.
Right.
And I feel this crossover though, because I know kind of some of the story, like with all the complications.
Right.
Very surface level. But knowing that, like the advocacy, an advocate, it might need to be like my word love was added back in there. Because even though you're not advocating for someone actively right now, it's still a really big part of you.
Yeah, it is. It's a very big part of me. And it always has been, to a certain degree. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So don't give them up. Don't give up advocacy.
No, I won't.
I know you won't. And don't give up being tenacious and judgmental or whatever words they want to use. I don't care. You know that you need to perceive a room and you're ahead of 99% of the population because most people are just like, I'm going with it. And they don't even think to try to smell out the bullshit, right? Like they're just like, oh yeah, that person said they're this, they're a millionaire, whatever. Okay, well, yeah, okay. Like show me. That's Lori.
Right.
Okay. Show me the Lamborghini and then I'll believe you. Right?
Right.
Well, shut them down next time someone says you're judgmental. Say, no, I'm just making choices for myself.
Right.
There you go. Exactly.
I'm choosing whether or not I want my marbles to touch your marbles.
I'm advocating for my choice, for my decisions.
Yes.
Well, if you think about it, like how long have women kind of been listening to, the world of, okay, well, don't get upset. And, our emotions are supposed to be like none. And we're supposed to be just like men in that way, but yet we're given a completely different lot in life. So it's a little, sometimes it feels like everybody's kind of, for somebody to say you're judgmental by like watching and looking before you make choices about who you want to interact with and what you want like to say and where your safe zone is. you know?
Right. Right.
Your safe zone is probably a lot different than anybody else's, and mine is too. My safe zone is if you want me to walk across the street naked because I have to, I will. But like,
Right.
I've been half naked. I'm fine. I walked up that stage with practically no clothes on. Oh, okay, I've done that. I could do that again. Does that make sense?
Right. Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know, my comfortability level about things is totally different in other ways.
Right.
You know, would I walk into do I walk into the meeting at school and be like, I know all the rules, I know how this runs, I know how 504 plan is written, and I know the words I'm supposed to use? No, I don't. So when I advocate from love, and it can come across as totally different. But I don't advocate for everybody. I just advocate for my kid. So you have this global way of communicating your advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really strong. It's a really strong thing. And kind of part of, there's a lot of leadership qualities in it. Just saying. Always like, I don't want to be a leader. I want to sit back with my marbles and decide who I want to play with. But I feel like it's such a wise decision, and such a shit that somebody says it's judgmental. What did you guys discover about maybe external views? Did you discover anything about that? Because I was curious.
That's a great question, Brooke. I really, for the most part, I'm not really aware of what other people perceive me as, because I'm just putting it out there. And I know the ones that like it will be around, and the ones that don't won't. And I've always been comfortable with that too.
Well, and that probably ties into the fact that like your statement hasn't changed since you were 8.
True.
So the external views have not influenced that statement since you were 8.
True.
So that's a gift in itself, in my opinion. But like I say that I don't care about external views and what people think. I say that because I don't let it influence or bring me down too much. Does that make sense? I still feel it. I still, think about it. But to get to the point of like never thinking about it, I was there at one point, and that was 2013. Can't wait to get back there. But like, there's a lot of unpacking, and like you said, shedding of some shit before you are okay with saying, you know what, if they judge me, they judge me. Or, oh, I forgot people even judge me. I felt really fun, like in flow. I felt like a life of flow when I was like, okay, well, people may be judging me, but I kind of forgot that they are at this point. And that's fun. Because you're very self-aware. Like, I didn't want to do any harm to anybody. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do all this stuff and fuck everybody. It was like, I just didn't want to be judged in a bad way for the things I was doing, because I had good intention, right? So I think I had more of not necessarily what people think, but how people see me. Because one of the things was like, I mean, if I leave this job, I make all this money and I'm just going to walk away. People are going to think I'm crazy, because I'm going to have to go replace this money, make more, income. But I think subconsciously my spirit was like, okay, you're going to like make your financial thing so easy that like, if you can't pay this bill, then I don't know what to tell you, lady. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I tried to make my life so simple to take care of with money that I didn't have to have the stress of making that money. Subconsciously, I feel like I did that. Or maybe I did it because I didn't want to ever feel so pressured again. I never wanted to feel like, oh my God, how am I going to make this much money to pay my bills this month? I wanted to be like,
Right.
listen, if I need to go waitress this weekend, I will. And the bills are paid. I don't want the stress of having that. But I didn't actively necessarily like do it because I wanted to quit my job. That wasn't the end game. So sometimes subconsciously we're throwing ourselves into the situation that we need. Like your statement, never changing from 8 years old. Your statement has never needed to change because it was true, 100% true. And when things come not 100% true, that's when we look at it. And I think that the part of the not giving ourselves permission is we think that we're going to be viewed as failure because we changed course. I remember getting divorced to Jeremiah's. When I was divorcing Jeremiah's dad, I walked in the garage and I saw my dad, and I was like, I was going to my mom and dad's, and my dad was in the garage, and I walked up to him, I hugged him. I said, I'm so sorry, Daddy. He goes, why are you sorry to me? You're not divorcing me. I'm not married to you. You're my daughter. That doesn't change. But yet I felt I needed to apologize to the other people, that it wasn't their relationship, but I felt like I owed them an apology. Because I was failing to meet an expectation in my mind that they had of me to be a success in my marriage. My dad said, when you were born, I never said, oh, I hope she's a really great wife. I mean, I'm kind of not the greatest wife, I gotta say. I'm okay with it. I told this guy down in Miami this one, he's calling me. I go, listen, I'm not the best. I'm not a good fit. I'm not. He's like, what are you talking? You're beautiful. You're smart. You're funny. I just want to learn more about you. I can't wait for you to come back to Miami. I go, dude, I'm not coming back to Miami for you. I'm not that woman. And he was like shocked at this. And I'm thinking, I have this piece of paper. And if I need to write on here that I don't need to have a boy accept me or like me or take me to dinner, then I will write it on the paper if you need me to, dude. But isn't that crazy though? People's perceptions are so crazy. I'm like, why would you think that I would get in a plane and come down there for a weekend for nothing but casual sex or dinner or whatever you want to call it? I don't care. Does that make sense?
Right.
I'm like, yeah. I'm not that girl.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a million women in Miami that you could pick right now that would do that with you. Go. He's like, but I like you. And I'm like, but I don't like me doing that.
Yeah, I don't like what your intentions
what you're making me.
are.
I don't like what you're making me. I don't like what you have decided I should be. And I want to do that.
Exactly.
And no should be a complete sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said the sentence, so it's done. So I just wanted to, first of all, it means the world to me that you guys did this with me tonight and that you trusted me to spend this time, because most people don't sign up for stuff like this unless they're having like they're in the middle of something's going on. It could be good, bad, indifferent, but something feels like it has to change and shift. So if I help you change and shift in any way, shape, or form for the good, that's my desire. And I designed these programs because the next one is like 22-day challenge. And I'm not trying to sell. I just want to tell you like what the vision is. It's a 22-day challenge, but it's about like, now you've got this statement about who you are and you know who you are. You want to go somewhere. You're not sure where, but the next thing is about uncovering and kind of unpacking all the shit that we carry around with us that we absolutely don't need to have anymore. And I got the idea from my son's backpack when he came home from the last day of school. And Laura, you might, you were a teacher.
I already know where you're going with it.
And at the end of the school year, you open that backpack and they bring all their shit that was in their desk. And it's got like markers that are dried out and pens that don't work and paper. And then there's probably like suckers at the bottom and I usually just want to toss the whole thing in the garbage, but the kids like, tried and true. They're like, oh, but don't get rid of that thing.
Mhm.
And so I have a bin. So Bo was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and he's very attached to stuff. It's like a security thing. And I was like, okay, so listen, I respect all your stuff, but you don't really probably want all this stuff or need all this stuff. And there's stuff in here that's broken. So I'm going to put it in a bin. I emptied it into a bin, and I said, I want you to pick 4 really important things that you'd like from your art projects and everything. And then every couple days, I want you to just take the good stuff out of here and put it in with your art supplies, or put it in this bin and we'll use it for next year. Cause like there was a brand new set of markers and pencils and stuff like that he could certainly use. So slowly trying to get him to understand that this stuff he doesn't necessarily need, but I understand the fact that he can't emotionally just throw it all away. So I was like, this 22-day challenge is going to be unpacking our backpack.
Okay.
So things like I'm perceptive, but I feel like maybe people judge me for it, or think that I'm being judgy instead, is just taking that statement and throwing it away. Or for me, like, my bad thing that I did, or the bad year that I had in my marriage, does not define my entire marriage or relationship with that person that's very special to me, even though they're not here. And even though I divorced them, you know what I mean? So they can still be special to me. But that part of the story I get to keep. And it doesn't mean that I get to take away the fact that happened, or I get to say it didn't happen, but I get to get rid of the guilt if I choose to. So that's what this 22-day thing is about. But the overall thing was reconnect her, because every time in my life where I've come to a path where things have to shift and change, I've felt very disconnected from who I am. And knowing that is, I think, powerful. But one piece is missing, and it was a continuum of that work. And that's where I kind of feel like I fell off the train tracks, is I finally understood what needed to happen, that I had to really be true to who I was and figure that out and continually do it. That was the second piece. So I made this statement, and I'll read it to you guys in closing, if that's okay. And I designed these programs to support people, and women mostly, and actually women and women, to rediscover their spark and live authentically, become the best version of themselves in all areas of their life, including career, family, relationships, and wealth. But a reconnector is a woman who is willing to do inner work and explore to nurture herself. A reconnector is a woman who knows she is destined for more than the daily demands of life. A reconnector is a woman who uses her unique gifts to create a life of abundance and clarity. And a reconnector is a woman who supports, shares wisdom, and knows her value. So my goal is to have a community of women supporting other women, whatever the capacity is that you have. So it could be just a post on the private Facebook group once, like, hey, I see that this person has been making daily comments every day for the last 5 weeks, and I haven't heard from her. Like, I'm checking in. Because I feel like when people aren't in your shit with you, but they know you and you influence them and they influence you, they might end up being the biggest support because they don't have anything personally vested in the shit.
Right.
Very true.
And support coming to you with conditions, or if you don't do it my way, I have an emotional attachment to it, isn't necessarily very supportive. So that's my goal. There's a bunch of
Awesome.
That's a great
reconnectors.
one.
Thank you. And I encourage you guys to take whatever you got from this and share it and use it, and whatever you didn't get that was good, throw it out the window.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
It was
You're welcome.
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you had a good time. Next time we should go to
Yeah.
TJ Maxx or Target, because I like to post on Friday nights from there, you know. Those
Oh,
mom
man. All right.
videos are pretty funny. Anyway,
Yeah.
I love you both. And
Yes, ladies, you have a wonderful weekend. I love you.
you too.
And it's
I'm right here.
nice to,
So if
nice
you need
to meet
something,
you,
just
Lori.
reach out.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. So looking forward to the next one.
Me too. I'm looking forward to seeing your big paragraph, like, I am this, and this.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And
So
like, here
take it for a
is.
couple
Right,
days
exactly.
and then type it up and see how it
Yes.
feels.
Yeah.
All right.
There we
Thanks
go.
for
It'll
spending
work.
the evening with me.
Absolutely. Have a great
All
All right.
weekend,
We'll see you
ladies.
soon. You too. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.